to you, came up with 3 different phases that needed repair work. This is the first phase of that work. It's from 51st Place to 51st Avenue on Decatur. We put it out for bid. We had 6 companies take out the plans to look at bidding, and we actually came back with 2 bids, very different bids. One was $165,150. One was $61,650. And so when we met with each vendor to go over their proposals, then we determined that, at least on the American Striping's part, they had omitted a number of things that needed to be corrected. So they resubmitted the corrected bid at $95,450. What they also submitted with this was recommendations, because, as you recall, this is the permeable paving part of Decatur Street. So after you had the study done by our engineer, you determined that yes, you wanted to make sure that it was repaired and replaced with permeable paving as it was originally constructed, but repaired and fixed so that it didn't fail again in a 10-year period of time. So Mike spent a great deal of time. Mike Clare, he's here tonight, and he'll talk to you in just a few minutes. But he worked a great deal on developing the specifications for permeable paving here in Prince George's County. So he is very knowledgeable in that area, and barring tearing up the street and actually looking at what's there, he came up with the specifications of what needed to be used to do the repair work, and so that's what went out. The issue that we now have before you, and what Mike and I are going to recommend tonight, and he will talk about it more, but we're going to recommend that you reject the bids and that we go back out with a modified specification. These 2 companies, neither one have done porous permeable paving work. They've done asphalt work, and they've done concrete work of regular streets. But we believe that it's imperative that we have somebody that is knowledgeable, that has experience. We don't want another company that has not had that. And plus, there was such a disparity between the bids. Mike believes he can adjust and modify and change and get the cost of the repairs down even further, and we'll get potentially more interest. The problem the reason we didn't get some interest, all of these companies took out the plans, which, as you can imagine, Mike spent a great deal of time on those plans, so there's a lot of effort there. It's a small job, and it requires the batch companies, the concrete plants, to make the permeable pavement, and they all have minimum quantities when they do that. And so this is a very small project in the scheme of things, particularly for some of these companies that you see on this page that took out the plans, and Mike can talk more about that. But we're here to answer questions, and if you want to add anything, Mike.
Yeah, so in addition to reviewing the bids that came in, we asked both bidders to give us examples of work they've done, because we wanted to make sure that I wanted to go look at what experience I had with permeable pavement. American Striping did send us a couple of sets of plans. Turns out that one of their plans was just around the corner from my house, so it was easy to take a look. And the work looked pretty good, but it was regular pavement. If we were procuring service or a contractor to just do normal paving, I would recommend that we choose them. But they were not able to provide any examples of any permanent, of course, pavement that they have done. And the other firm said they didn't actually do it. They used a subcontractor to do it, and we asked them for information on their subcontractor's work so we could inspect it, and they didn't give us that information. So having had the failure that we're experiencing on Decatur, Rodney and I both felt a little uncomfortable about recommending a firm that cannot demonstrate experience in that area. The project is small by paving standards, and as you all probably know from just driving around on the streets, there's a tremendous amount of road work going on, especially in the summertime. So a couple of the companies that we were anticipating getting bids from, like Metro, which is right here in Edmondson, was not interested because of the size of the project. We did meet the minimum batch sizes, so that was not an issue. Also, we're expecting College Park maybe to submit a bid, but they did. And I think it's because of the size of the job. So we're thinking that it would be best to rebid the job. I recently attended a conference on low impact development, green infrastructure in Nashville, and I spoke with about a dozen vendors of different products. And part of the reason for doing that was the research that I'm doing related to the industrial street that we're currently under design, 46th Avenue, and I wanted to see what other folks are doing. And I found out that there's a contractor that manufactures permeable concrete that is actually produces small batches, and that we might be able to look at that, and it would substantially reduce the cost of our work. And what they do is they fabricate this material in their warehouse, and then they truck it right to the project site. The other thing that, and I probably should have picked that up on my own earlier, that I saw was that on the section that we have now, I drew a 10-foot wide section of porous pavement, because when I measured what the area that was failing, the impacts went out 10 feet. But recently I realized that we don't need to have 10 feet of porous pavement for the street to function as a grade street. And so I'm going to propose that we'll make some presentations to share the information, but we think that with 4 to 5 feet of porous, it can be asphalt or porous concrete, it'll work just fine at a lower cost. And the reason for that is that the material, the permeable, the porous pavement, porous asphalt, or the porous concrete, it can infiltrate water at a rate of about 100 inches plus per hour. The biggest storm that we get around, that we get, well, all the storm drainage systems in Prince George's County are designed for the 2 and the 10-year storm. The 2-year storm is a 3-inch rainfall event, and the 10-year storm is a 5-inch rainfall event. Then the other storm that is frequently dealt with is the 100-year storm, which is the statutory floodplain. And that currently is an 8.2-inch rainfall event. So having a poor surface that can absorb 100 inches an hour means that a 4 to 5 foot section can easily absorb everything that's coming off. You know, the drainage is from a 12-foot lane, because the road is ground and your road width is 24 feet. So 12 feet drains to one side, and the other drains to the other side. So we're only collecting, it's 12 feet in all, and if we have a 4 to 5 foot section, it has no problem collecting that. But we still would need to repair the area that is failing. But the area outside of the porous pavement would be repaired with typical blacktop, which is much cheaper. And it would not, the section of porous pavement requires we go down about 30 inches. So we have to excavate the soil that's there and replace the stone and the pipe. But if we limit the width of that section, then it's a lot less excavation, a lot less removal of soil, and the total project should drop. It should drop somewhere between 30 to 50%. So that would be good for the town for this first project, but keep in mind that we, over time, we're going to have to remove all of the green street. So these are some of the things that we've been considering and discussing, and part of the reason for rebidding the job. We think we can do get a better price. Now, if we'll still have to make a choice about whether we want to go with porous asphalt or porous concrete. One of the advantages of porous concrete is that it doesn't require that. The minimum batch size for porous asphalt is 50 tons. We didn't have any trouble meeting that with the current design. I think we'll still be above that for the revised design, but the porous concrete comes in. We can make 4-foot or 5-foot sections, and it's simply 5 or 6. So they're prefab sections made in the shop, and they truck it to the site. So we still have to prepare the base with the stone, but then they just come and drop it in place, and it's ready to go. So should also go a little bit faster and create less disturbance to the homes that are in the area. So just wanted to share that information with you and get your feedback on that.
So this means that you would have to rewrite the bid then, because the initial bid did not include the porous asphalt or concrete, right?
I'm going to have to redo, make some changes to the plans and make some changes to the specs. I'm going to do that at my cost. I'm not going to charge the town anything because it's my work.
Will you be doing it alternatively? Will you bid both, or have it bid both, or just one?
It's an interesting idea. We haven't gone that far, but I'm thinking that what I'll do is I'll cost out each alternative, and then we can present it back to the council and have you decide if you have a preference.
The other thing I was going to mention, this is kind of ties into our other issue that why Kirsten is here, but if you recall, we're going to refinance the pavement cost that we had on Decatur that we borrowed money for, the town borrowed money for back in 2009. It's down to $415,000. Well, while we're renewing with TD Bank, if you recall, to expedite and get it done and get it closed and moving forward till the Department of Housing and Community Development has an issue where we can potentially join in. One of the things we could take a look at, instead of just doing the 51st Place to 51st Avenue, is do all of Decatur's repair at one time. That would make it much more attractive to a company, potentially as a larger project. It would also then allow us to do the bond issue late this fall to borrow the money to do that. So I talked to Department of Housing today, and they're very excited about including us in their next issue, and they believe that our interest rate would drop significantly compared to what we're going to be renewing with TD Bank. But so more thought and more to follow on that, but I just wanted to throw that out there. As you recall, it was about $69,000 for the next phase and about $117 for the next phase after that, and so that's about $200,000. And then whatever this phase would be, you're getting up to close to about a $250,000 street project.
What about those assessors coming through?
They still are coming through. It's probably going to be now. They tell me the latest is they're going to potentially be starting 2020. But what Mike did,
It was this fall, and now it's 2020. Okay.
They have a lot of work. But what happened was Mike was able to get his specifications for the porous pavement built into their plans. So any disruption or just work or effort that they disrupt our part of the street, then they have to go back and put it back the exact way that he's
I think if we change our section, we would have to send them the revised
Right.
section. But they
And-
already agreed to do what we're,
Right.
if they come, we know where they're coming through, we have their 90% plans.
Yeah.
And if they come through an area, of course, paving, they'll replace, what they do is they excavate a ditch that's about 30 inches wide and 6 feet deep to replace the water line. And so they would repair that section if it impacts our work. Of course, another aspect of that is that when they're finished, they are going to come back and resurface all the road. That's my understanding.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. But they have to do it to our specifications.
Okay, so.
Dealing with the
So we don't have
pervious
those
pavement,
pervious.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed when it went from fall to 2020.
Yeah.
Thinking, wow, wait a minute. But
Because that was gonna negate our whole need to pay for any of this. 'cause
Yeah.
We're just going
yeah,
to,
at one point, yeah.
Are there other questions?
So what tonight we're asking you is just to reject the bids and authorize rebidding.
Any other questions before we?
Well, if we're starting over, it seems kind of pointless to to debate the issue.
And we're not exactly starting over. We can salvage much of what's in the plans. If we stay with porous paving, all the specs are the same, because the specs talk about kind of material to use, how to apply it and so forth. The only thing that would change if we go to porous asphalt will be the width of the porous asphalt, which it has a cost associated with it. If we go to porous concrete, then I'll be writing new specs for the porous concrete. But I already have the specs in my files. It's not that big an issue for me to make changes. But our key is we want to make sure that we're selecting the right design and that we get competitive bids. The bids were, the one bid, the second bid was very high. It came in at $160,000. That was part of the reason for that is that they use a lot of subs. So the sub has this price into the work, and then they mark it up. And so whenever you have 2 or 3 change in the process, it brings the price up.
Plus, they haven't done the particular work that we're looking for.
That was our biggest concern.
Right.
So this is a sum that's coming out of the budget. This is something we don't alone?
No,
Right.
the work that we're doing here, we're just taking out of our operating fund. It'll require you at some point in time to amend the budget this year, but we're just taking this portion out of our operating funds to do that. We have those available. Instead of you've been making $100,000 transfers to the reserve fund the last few years. Well, this year, instead of doing that, you would do this work. And which is a good thing that we have that available to do that, and we don't have to go to our reserve funds, or we don't have to borrow money. But I just was suggesting that if we think that each year we're going to have come up with those kind of dollars, we may not have them available. Maybe it might be that we go ahead and borrow. And Mr. Day said yes, we could do new money with refinance money, and look at an interest rate of, the last issue they just closed on was 2.65%, I believe. So our issue we're closing on tonight is 4.33%. So significant difference there.
But wasn't a big part of the street project, didn't a lot of it fall under a grant?
Yes, 1.2 million came from recovery funds from President Obama.
So this would be coming out, this is a part of, this money would be coming out of operating, which would be at net.
Correct. So the lower we can get it, the better we're going to be.
So do we need to make a motion to reject the bid, or can we just?
Yes, I think it would be proper to make a reject the bids and reauthorize the bidding.
To get a better pool of qualified. Is there, entertain a motion to authorize going back out for bid to get a better pool of qualified contractors for our Decatur Street repairs. So,
I move that we reject the bid and put it back out to get,
go back out to bid.
I
We didn't
second.
get a new round of proposals.
We never
Could I
voted on it.
suggest that
We
you
never
make the
voted on it.
language that we go back out to bids with revised plans and specs?
Yes,
And with revised plans.
with your revised plan, yeah.
And I second.
I'm a good parent.
Is there a second?
B seconds. Maybe seconds.
All in favor? All right. Go bid.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do like that option. That manufacturer. The next item is the consideration of approval of ordinance 2018-OR-3, which is adopting the recodified Town of Livingston Code Book, which was introduced at our July 11th meeting. Their motion to approve our code book, recodified code book.
I make a motion to approve approve the ordinance 2018-R03,
there a
adoption
second?
of the recodified Town of Evanston Code Book.
Seconds by B.
Ms. B,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We have our code book approved. And the next item is the consideration of a policy for the use of the town vehicles to include wording from our code book, chapter 41, under Code of Ethics.
So it would read, in addition to the text that we have in our materials, it would read, a town official or employee found to have violated this policy may be subject to disciplinary or other appropriate personnel action, including loss of vehicle privileges.
Is there a motion to approve our policy for the use of our town vehicles?
I move that we approve the amended policy for the use of town vehicles.
Thank you, Ms. Tuberville. Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. White?
I abstain.
Oh, so Ms. B, you second.
Yeah.
Okay. You abstain. All right, Ms. B, how do you vote? Aye. Mr. Johnson? All right, 2 abstentions. And 2 ayes. And I vote aye. Mm-mm. Aye, abstain.
Yeah, the abstentions are non-votes. Are you
So motion
considering
passes.
them to be not no's?
They,
You need a majority of votes to approve.
so you're abstaining because,
I have to give a reason why.
so is it because you disapprove of it or you just don't choose to vote?
But I disapprove of it.
Okay, so that would be a nay then, right? Excuse me. And Ms. White?
I abstain because there's some things in it that I don't agree with.
Yeah, that's why
Well, then
I
that would
disapprove.
So that would be a nay as well, right?
I abstain.
Okay. So,
I would rather not vote on it.
you'd rather
I
not?
can choose not to vote on I
Well,
abstain.
if you abstain, then you're not agreeing with the policy. If there's some things on there, if there's some things on there that you disagree, so that would be that you don't agree with the policy, so that would be a no or nay. Now, if it's brought back up, and even in your comment, it's just that, it's a few things that you don't agree with.
Right.
You don't disagree with the entire policy.
Right.
There's a few things that you don't agree with.
Right.
Now, is there anything that you might want us to edit tonight, that you might want to mention about the policy that you don't agree with, and maybe we can,
There's some things I'd like to think about, and that's my reason for abstaining. There are some things I would like to think about in the policy.
okay. So really, that leaves us with a nay and a nay. So that's really it is a tie.
Are you abstaining or do you vote no? Hello? Mr. Hello, Tom?
What?
Are you abstaining or do you vote no?
Well, first of all, why you question? I just did what I was going to do. I did it. So you don't need to question.
The issue is, the majority shall form a quorum for the transaction of business, and the presence of the mayor shall be counted toward the quorum. And upon each action taken, the yea and nay vote of each council person shall be recorded opposite his or her name. The mayor shall cast a vote upon such action only in the event the votes of the council members are otherwise tied. And you're not voting.
So that means
But she
that it
counts
passes.
as part of the quorum
But she can only vote
in the event of a...
in the event of a tie, which means that you've got minimum 4 people here, so you'd need 3 votes, and you have 2. She can make it part of the quorum, but she can't vote unless there's a tie. So the only votes you have are 2 non-votes and
Which
2
is a
yeses.
decision.
And you need more than 2 yeses to adopt something. That's the problem.
That's great.
Does,
It does, because if you have 2 people that said they abstained, that's a vote.
Dysfunction.
That's yeah.
It is dysfunction, but that's what it says. That's what your charter says right now. I've just read it for you. In reading it, the duty of a council member is to vote. Generally, people abstain, and how far you get into why they're abstaining is a fight I've heard before in other towns, okay? But it says votes, and an abstention is not a vote. It's a declination to vote. So I don't, I can look into this further to see if there's any case in the state that interprets that differently.
Seems like there's a requirement to vote, to make a decision.
It says, and upon each action taken, the yea and nay vote of each council person shall be recorded. I mean, people are elected to vote, they're not elected to abstain, but at times people do abstain.
It says it should be a yay or a nay. If there are reasons for abstaining, reviewing more of the, because you said that there were some things that you didn't like about it or you didn't agree with, you might want to mention that, and we can either decide to keep it or leave it. And the same with you, Mr. Johnson. Was there anything in particular, or you want to review it as well?
Yeah, I'd rather review it as well.
crazy. So, I don't even know that the motion died because it didn't die. You have two people that said yes. And to me, that would, well, I hear the quorum.
Well, it's you need a majority.
Can we table it and to give them the opportunity to fully review the document and then revisit the vote in the next meeting?
You would
We
continue
can-
the matter to do that. Tabling means you have to take it back up the same night.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll continue,
Yeah.
yeah, so they can get the time to fully.
We can also look at if there's been more of an interpretation than I can see right in your charter
Mhm.
as to how the abstaining affects the requirements for voting.
So, what am I allowing this vote to do?
You would be continuing it to the next council meeting.
So the vote that was on the table did what?
You don't have a majority of your quorum
So
in
it
support of it.
just- Did
So,
it die?
yeah,
Okay.
Well, it failed.
failed, yeah, doesn't die.
Because we had a second.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Failed for lack of votes.
Thank you so much. Okay, so is there a motion to continue the consideration of the policy for the town vehicles after further review by council members?
I'll make a motion to continue.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So the next item, as we move on, is the consideration of the purchase of a Chevrolet Tahoe for the police department, which will be used by Captain Sullivan, and his unmarked vehicle will move down to our corporal. Is there a motion to continue the purchase of the Chevrolet Tahoe for the use of the police department?
I make a motion to purchase of the Chevrolet Tahoe for the police department.
My.
I'll second.
How do you vote, Mr. Johnson? How do you vote, Mr. Johnson?
What, for the Tahoe?
Mm-hmm.
You know, for I just second it.
Ms. Turberville?
Yay.
Ms. B?
Yeah.
Ms. White?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. You have a new Tahoe, Captain Sullivan.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
The police
Thank
department
you.
has a new.
Oh, come on.
The next item is the consideration of retaining Ms. Kirsten Woods of Brian Miller Olive to serve as bond counsel for the renewal of the town's GO bond issued through TD Bank.
Your Honor, this is continuation from several months back as we started this process. We actually should have started the process in 2017, but it missed everybody's tickler file. So we got a little behind the 8 ball, and finally TD Bank was a little behind the 8 ball because Mr. Deal had some personal family issues to come up, and so and then vacations. And anyway, it all worked out, and Ms. Woods is here tonight and can answer any questions, but this first action tonight is to retain her services. She's already completed most of the work. The letter is in your packet and outlines her potential fee up to $10,000 for the work that has been completed.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Ms. Ferguson, did you?
Yes, just to add on to this, based on the where we are right now with the bond counsel is absolutely necessary to be part of this review because a bond like this is one that will be a tax-free bond, and there has to be legal support for the fact that that will happen, and there will be, it will be a tax-free bond. So we have used Ms. Wood and her firm twice before on the same bond. And so she is, I believe, in this situation, TD Bank has still waiving their review maybe. And so this would be the only bond counsel that the town would have to pay for. That's what it's looking like right now, which is a good deal better than last time around where we had to pay for both sides of this transaction, and which is common. So all of the paperwork that makes the extension of this bond possible has been prepared by...
They all have packets of it?
Yes, by them. I am not able to do that. I'm not a bond counsel. It's a very specific line of work. So municipal attorneys don't do that. They issue one opinion letter, but that's it. It has to be through bond counsel.
And Ms. Woods did the bulk of this work last week, so
yes, very quickly.
Very
Thank you
quickly
very
turned
much.
it around, very timely, outstanding professional. She communicated with Mr. Deal. I think probably taught Mr. Deal some lessons along the way in how these bonds work. So,
Ms. Woods, would you like to address it?
Sure. It's nice to be here with you all again, and I think that the town attorney and the town administrator sort of summarized everything pretty well for you all, but if you have any questions for me, you can feel free to ask those. I guess maybe should we wait until you bring the motion for the actual paperwork for that? Mm-hmm. But if you have any questions for me in terms of my experience or how I got here, I think Sue Ellen sort of described that pretty clearly. But if you have any questions about my role or the expertise of the firm, happy to answer those questions. And then any questions about the actual transaction when you sort of make the motion for the particular transaction-specific item.
So just explain the bond and what we'll be getting into again.
Okay. So currently, you guys entered into a transaction with TD Bank in, I believe it was 2011, and the provisions of that transaction basically say that the bank has an option to force you to refinance it pretty much like every 3 to 5 years. And so you did that again in 2014. The documents as they stand are your original resolution, which is what your resolution tonight is essentially amending. Provides certain mechanics for being able to, for you all to be able to request the bank to continue to hold the bond up to the maturity date, which I think is like 2030 something.
2028.
2028, that's what it is. Thank you. And so what has transpired here is that the date for you to make that request, it passed without any action. And as Mr. Barnes pointed out, I think it just, it missed everybody's tickler in terms of getting it done prior to July 1, 2017. And so when everyone became aware of it, it was a process of engaging with TD Bank to say, hey, we missed this date, but we still are interested in having you continue to hold the bond. And I guess what sort of the effect of that, the fact that the original date was overshot, changed the transaction a tiny bit. So we had to prepare some additional paperwork, we had to deliver some additional opinions, and we'll have to make one additional filing with the IRS that we wouldn't have otherwise had to make at this point. And so that's what we've basically been working on over the last 7 to 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that, to get all of that documented. And as the town attorney pointed out, the bank declined to have their own counsel, even though we asked them on multiple occasions if they wanted to do that. I guess, primarily it seems that they were satisfied with, what the provisions of the document said. And even though I had to change those a tiny bit because of timing, they were able to get comfortable with it. And that brings us sort of here today. And then I guess tiny bit of background on why your interest rate has gone up so greatly. You guys are probably aware that at the end of last year, the Congress and, well, the Congress, the Senate, and the House presented a change in the tax code for the United States of America, the entire tax code. And that included a change in the corporate tax rate so the tax rate for corporations went down from 34% to 21%. And the effect of that on bank rates, like the one that you guys have, is essentially that it increased the bank rate. It sounds counterintuitive, but when the corporate tax rate goes down, the bank is basically saying, hey, we bought this tax-free bond because we wanted to experience the tax benefits, because we were paying so many taxes, we wanted to offset our tax liability. But now that our tax liability is lower, the value of the tax-exempt bond isn't as great to us. So even though it seems counterintuitive, by their tax rate going down, the way that the interest rate is calculated under the document, it causes your interest rate to go up, because they're like, we want to, capture the same benefit that we would have captured if our tax rate had still been high, and the only way we can do that is to charge you a little extra money. And so that's why your rate has, increased basically twofold. It normally wouldn't have happened that way, but because of the corporate tax rate changes at the end of last year, that this is sort of the result, which is part of the reason.
Can you put that in writing for us? Because I would love to be able to disseminate that to a number of people.
You have me recorded. But it was a big hullabaloo in the tax exempt bond arena on the legal
So a lot
side
of
and the business
municipalities are
side.
getting screwed like this.
Yeah, and it's not
A lot
it's
of
not-
taxpayers
It's not
are
just
getting
small.
screwed like
It's not small municipalities. It's anybody that has a this type of provision, and the provision actually normally the bank is going to provide that they can adjust it to accommodate this kind of tax law change, and so many municipalities, small ones, states, large cities that have these privately placed transactions with banks have definitely been encountering this. We've done a bunch of these type of adjustments over the last 7-8 months. Yeah, so.
Another benefit of the Department of Housing's pooling is that we lock in the interest rate for 10 years or whatever the term of the bond would be.
Right.
So we would not have this every 3-year adjustment potential that TD Bank.
They were not doing this back in 2011. They stopped
Right.
for a long time.
Yeah.
When there was the downturn, DHCD stopped doing
Right.
this for a long time.
Right.
So how often do we do this renewal of the bond? When was the last
Every
time?
3 years.
Every 3
So it's every
Yeah.
3 years.
For some reason, it all sounds so familiar.
It sounds fast, right?
Yeah, it all sounds
You're
like
like,
I've
what,
heard
didn't we
this
just do
before.
this earlier this year? Right. So it's every 3 years.
quick.
The 3 years goes by really quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
also,
remember 3 years
just
ago.
so that you're cognizant, hopefully you will be able to do the other transaction where you can refinance out of this. But if you're not able to, you'll probably see me back here in 2 years now, because the resolution that's in front of you and the proposal from the bank basically said that you would go from 2017, which would put you back on track with what it should have been from last year. So just to be clear on that, you actually would see me in 2 years now instead of 3, if you were to move forward with this.
And the other thing, the bank thinks they did us a favor. They didn't backdate any interest. So
Right.
So we gained the
About a
lower
year.
interest rate for almost a year.
Almost a year, I guess.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it would have been October, yeah.
So that, I guess, was some silver lining out of the process. But 2020, it will come back for you if we stay with TD Bank. But what we're going to be proposing to you later this fall is to go ahead and pay it off. We don't have a pre-penalty. We don't have any kind of in fact, the resolution authorizes us to go ahead and pay that when we want. So.
At any time, yeah, with notice to the bank. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Did you wanna mention the
Go
little
ahead.
change? Or
Yeah,
do
go
you want
ahead.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys have a draft of the resolution in your packets. I had to make a minor change today. That was the result of my tax attorney's final review of the updated amortization or debt service schedule that the bank provided to us yesterday. And the change is in, I think it's like the second to last whereas clause, probably on the second page of the document.
Correct.
Second to last, okay, perfect. That yours says that the new interest rate will go into effect on October 1, which is what I had communicated to them, and they, seemed to agree with. But when they sent us the debt service schedule, they actually had the new interest rate going into effect tomorrow. So now that October 1st, 2018 date and that second to last whereas clause says September 6th, 2018 instead. So that's the one change from what you saw in your packet that we're asking would be considered in the final resolution. Everything else looks exactly the same. And if you're interested, just for your own personal edification, that the reference to the discount factor, we had to change the definition of discount factor in the amendments that you're doing. That's the piece that's actually affected by the change in corporate tax rate. So in the original document, it was, I think, 0.69, and now it's 0.815. So that's the change that increases the rate. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you considering my engagement and for engaging me again.
Yes.
I hope.
And so the motion is the consideration of retaining Kirsten Woods of Brian Miller Olive to serve as our bond counsel for the renewal of our town's GO bond issue with TD Bank. I'll entertain a motion.
I so moved.
To consider. Thank you very much, Ms. White. A second.
Second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Turkerville. All in favor? Aye. You say aye. All right. Council, and the next item is the consideration of Resolution 2018 R-05 authorizing the renewal of our GO bond with TD Bank. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018 R-05? I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
Thank you very much, Ms. Turnerville. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye. Thank you. As we move on to our next item, you had a, Ms. Ferguson? You had a comment?
No, I was just saying that I think we did that.
Oh,
I think she's going to stick around for signing the
I'm gonna stick around
document.
because I have some
Okay.
couple documents that I need executed, and I don't want to interrupt the meeting, so I'm just gonna hang around. Thank you, though.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clare.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. So our next item is our minutes from the following meetings, our July 3rd meeting, our work session and closed session.
I make a motion that we approve. Any concerns?
And
You had a question? Okay, go ahead.
so we had July 3rd work session and 2 closed sessions on the 3rd. Did we go back in?
Yes, there were two.
There were two.
Do we usually approve work session minutes?
Everything is all together.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we
Okay.
do. We record them, it's all together. Yes, I think you asked that question before.
Thank you,
This
Madam
point.
Mayor, for
Yes.
reminding me.
So, we had July 3rd work session, 2 closed sessions, July 3rd. Are there any questions, comments concerning those?
I had a question. In one of our closed sessions, I think we had a vote. Is the vote supposed to be on here?
On our
You have an actual vote yet?
regular, it should have gone into our regular session. On the 11th?
On the 3rd. One of them from Salida, one on the 3rd.
From the 3rd, you're saying there was a vote?
Since the staff wasn't in that, you all would have to tell us, so we wouldn't have record of it.
Yeah, because of the closed session.
So somebody from the closed session would have to,
I think that would be
I thought
me.
it was in the closed session, maybe it was in the open.
What are you referring to?
We had a vote.
well, there was the two
Oh.
closed sessions. The purposes were, the first one was, they both were the same, hiring of a police chief.
Oh.
The first session was the introduction of a police chief candidate to council and staff, and so you had, I happened to be in that one, and Shantae was, and the candidate was with us. Then you ended that one. You didn't take any action in that one, and then went back into regular session,
And then we went back.
and
into
then
closed
you went
session.
back into a closed session, and then the staff was not included in that, so I don't know about any kind of votes.
I think the vote was in the closed session, we went back in.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Yeah, somebody's gonna have to say what that motion was and what the vote was.
Probably take it off the table for now to allow you to do that.
Yeah, 'cause I had to,
Right.
it took me a long time to figure out what it was, so I have to look back over.
Do you have record of it?
I think so. I remember it. I was trying to remember where it happened.
All right, Sue Ellen's suggesting taking it off, but it doesn't do any good to take it off if no one remembers what the vote was and what the vote ended up being.
Yeah, we recall, at least I recall what the vote was and what was it? The
But
final vote.
you have record of it?
Well, I have my
We didn't write
memory.
it down, but.
Okay,
You
and so
didn't
you
put it
know
in
what
here.
each person voted?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure, because that's what has to get recorded.
That's fine. Yes.
You should probably then take it off the table,
Mhm, yeah.
revise it, and bring it back.
The second one on the list.
Yes.
The third one, the second closed session.
Second closed session, yeah. Please just send that to Shantae. She can correct it and then get it on the next meeting.
All right, the regular meeting minutes on July 11th. Any questions, concerns? July 18th and July 25th, the special council meeting.
On the, in the special council, for the meeting on July 25th, in the old business where Councilmember Lane B moved to hire Billy Sullivan as the police chief, it says the motion died, but I remember Mr. Johnson seconding the motion.
If he, I don't remember that, but if he seconded and no one
And there was
voted,
no
it
vote.
dies, yeah.
But we didn't vote. He seconded, but it died, there wasn't a vote made.
Right, that means it dies. What are you saying? Where are you?
So Sweetie, what you're suggesting is on item 2 there under all business, it needs to say Councilmember Lane B moved, seconded by
Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson,
Right.
and that's it. There was no
There
vote
was no
taken.
vote.
Right.
So
Died for
motion
lack of- well, didn't
died.
have a second, but it died.
Well, no, it died because we
Didn't vote.
Didn't
you
vote.
didn't recommend it.
Yeah.
Because we realized it was not a legal
Are
vote
you
to take.
supposed to vote? I see you at the town council. Is there supposed to be a vote?
When was this happening, during a meeting? That,
It happened during the special meeting on the 25th.
It was a meeting.
That special
There's
meeting, wasn't
a-
that the
a vote.
meeting when we hurry up and got that
It just didn't-
voted to
it
get
just
that
didn't happen.
playground thing? That wasn't a special meeting?
You said you
Yeah, it
made
was,
the
but
motion?
not this one.
Johnson.
This one was where you had the
Councilmember
meeting with the
Bean.
police chief.
And
And
Johnson
Mr.
second.
Johnson seconded.
And then there, no one
And then there
voted.
was no vote.
Right, and we couldn't vote because the town charter says that,
The council can't nominate the police chief. That comes from the mayor.
right, and Betsy, that's
But
in the
she-
minutes.
Yeah.
That's in the minutes. The minutes say the town charter requires that the recommendation for a candidate to be police chief must come from the mayor. So it wasn't a vote that could be taken
Right.
legally under the town charter.
Yeah,
That's my question.
that's what happened.
So the only addition would be to seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Got it.
I mean, I can see putting it there because that happened, but I can also understand why it wasn't there because it shouldn't have happened.
It's still okay to
Someone
say
else
it.
making a motion.
It's fine, it's fine
Yeah.
to say it.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, just when
It's
you approve
okay
it,
to have
just
it
with
down
that
there
amendment.
because it happened, but it may not have been there because it should not have. Thank you. That was from the 11th and the 18th. We said okay. 25th. No, that was from the 25th. All right. So we have 2 corrections. We're going to add that vote on the 25th. And we're going to remove the July 3rd closed session so that we can edit that. So is there a motion to approve our minutes with the corrections from July 3rd as well as July 25th?
I make a motion to accept all of them. Sorry, do I have to say each?
No,
date?
no,
Okay.
thank you. There's a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Hi.
All right, so the next item is the consideration of award of bid for the painting of curbs, sidewalks, crosswalks, and bike lanes on 51st Street and Buchanan Streets. Mr. Parlin.
Yes, Mayor, this is our, and, well, we actually try to go about 2 to 3 years before we paint, so I think it's, in this case, it's been 2.5 years before we go back in on Decatur and do the curbs and gutters, crosswalks. Also, 51st Street, the bike lane is now missing, and so on Buchanan. So this would include all of those areas. We had 3 bid holders. One, after they looked at it, decided that they wanted to only put down thermal, which is a whole lot more expensive. We're using our HUR funds to pay for this, and we get about $12,000 a year, and the low bid on this is from American Striping for $10,853. I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Barnes? Is there a
The
motion?
bid's already been made?
Huh?
I said the bid's already been made?
Mm-hmm.
The same people did it before?
No, American Striping is new vendor. No, we didn't even include the last one because they didn't do a particularly good job. It comes with a 1-year warranty on all the work.
Is there a motion to award the bid to our lowest bidder for painting of the curb, crosswalks, and bike lanes on 51st Street and Buchanan Street?
I'm sorry, what was the amount again?
$10,853 and Decatur. And we're painting, we're not doing thermal because of the cost of the thermal and because of the disruption that is going to happen with the work eventually. So,
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve, that we award to the lowest bidder for painting them.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I already said it also. Try to save y'all time. The next item is the consideration of declaring 2 vehicles as surplus property and authorizing to dispose of them on govdeals.com. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to dispose of the 2 vehicles on the
Thank you.
deals.
I'll second.
Yep. Mr. Johnson, all in favor? The next item is the consideration of support resolution 2018-R-04 to the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for the Town of Edmonston's Community Legacy Grant applications for the Edmonston Beautiful and Adam Plummer Annex.
Your Honor, this is the open comment period for the grants that we submitted way back in the early spring that Shantae wrote. And so we've gathered up support letters from our delegates, from Senator Pinsky, from several other folks. And this, while you wouldn't have to do a resolution, we think it would just be one more nice thing to submit. This is for a $50,000 community legacy grant for the Edmonston Beautiful program that we're currently administering, that 11 homeowners are benefiting from. And then the Adam Plummer Annex is the addition onto the back of this building that would provide for community space and additional space for the police department. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. We won't know until late November, but we hope this is just one more thing that will help encourage them to say yes.
I think it's fantastic.
And this would be, how much are the two grants for, the
The
applications?
Edmonston Beautiful grant's $50,000 and the Plummer Annex is $363,000, I believe.
So that would bring, if we were to get those full amounts, which is maybe unlikely for the Adam Plummer, but I believe in wishful thinking. That would bring the grants
About
that the
1.
two of you essentially have applied for and received for Edmonston to almost.
About 1.6 million.
And also, you're forgetting, we also applied with the Edmonston Beautiful an LED sign, which would go in Kenilworth, which we could then project in both English and Spanish messages, announcements, events to our residents. So that's included as well.
But we've also been awarded $50,000 already for the Edmonston Beautiful.
Yes, the current amount is $50,000.
Right, okay.
Yes, and I applied for an additional round.
Oh, okay. For
in addition to the
round,
lighting
okay.
and the addition to the building.
Shantae works.
What's the Adam Plummer Annex? Where does that?
The reason we used the Adam Plummer connotation was because of what his role was here in the community, and part of that room that'll be built is a community room. You saw the plans, we've circulated them, we went over them actually in a work session. And that room would be used for the police department to have Explorer Club, after school, before school, English as second language. It would be used for any kind of classes that we would want to have where the staff can just walk right in there and do it. They would essentially take this building from that doorway and redo it, the layout, so that the kitchen would be next to the community room. There would be offices above the community room. There'd be a locker room for the police officers, so that with the shower facility, so if they needed to do that. The bathrooms would be redone and brought forward so that they could be used by both ends of the building. And I think you had this discussion with an architect a number of years ago, actually, and didn't go anywhere. And so this is bringing that back up and trying to accomplish.
That's just what it would be called.
The Adam Plummer is just the name we chose because we focused on the diversity of the community, the role that he played in our history of developing over Edmonston. So as we write the grant, we're trying to pull every hook that we can that will make them look favorably upon the grant. So we thought that was a good tie-in.
Anything in addition? Since I know you worked really hard on this grant.
No, just hoping that we get it. I reached out, like Rod said, we've been in contact with our Senator Pinsky and our delegates, so everyone seems to be on board with it.
Fantastic. So I'll entertain a motion to support this resolution, 2018 R04.
I make a motion to approve this resolution.
Your second? All in favor? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. Resolution has been approved, and thank you very much for your work on it. And all of the grants that we've benefited from here in the town. Captain, would you like to give the police report?
Well, for the month of August, we had 6 911 hang-up calls, 4 burglar alarm type calls, 1 check on the welfare, 24 disorderly subjects, which would also include disputes between persons, 2 domestics, 9 loud music, 2 suspicious subjects, 1 suspicious vehicle. We had 4 theft from autos, 3 traffic accidents, 1 hit and run, 5 traffic complaints, 1 unknown trouble, 2 vandalism, 1 threats complaint, and 70 other miscellaneous, including traffic stops. For July, we wrote 2 DUIs, 2 driver's license violations, 1 cell phone, 1 speeding, 3 others. And that was state citations. We had 1 written warning for cell phone, 1 safety repair order, and 12 parking tickets for the month of August. We had some people taking vacations and some with sicknesses in the family, so that's one reason our numbers are a little lower this month. And that's all I have tonight.
Any questions for Captain?
I have a concern, Jeff brought up several times before, that right at the corner of Decatur and Taylor is getting hectic again. The Metro Access continue to park, and it's such a narrow street, and certain times of the day, it's like only 1 vehicle can go, so traffic has got to pull in. It's just, we need to really do a better job around 3 o'clock.
Okay, do we need to paint the curb yellow further down?
It doesn't matter, because they're parking.
They still do it?
Yes, it doesn't matter.
Everything.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know, I wanted to add it to the
Yeah.
striping if we did.
No, it doesn't matter.
They need to be
And
reminded every
certain
time
times of the day, it could be a head-on collision.
Okay, I'll tell the guys to step it up again.
Yeah.
I know I've went by there 4 times today, and I'm not hitting the right time, so I'll mention it.
Right
to them.
around 3 o'clock, and between 3 and 5 in the school buses.
Yeah, it used
Yeah.
to, in the morning shift, it seemed around 7:30, 8:30, when the school buses were coming through. I guess the parents or Metro Access was dropping them off. And they seem to be, the morning shift seemed to be better. But I'll let the evening guys know.
I haven't seen one follow the rule.
Where, over there?
Your Honor, can I just give a quick code update?
Yeah, you can. I also wanted to mention that for some reason Decatur Street is hot with people just going shoo right through the stop signs. I cannot believe I witnessed it like I do.
Okay.
Same thing's right out here too?
Yep, just zoom, and I mean, like,
I'll tell Torres to move her stop sign watching.
She's really good at 51st Street.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Barnes, you had a code?
Just, I want to, we had a few meetings back, I think, we had one of our residents mention about stuff happening with code issues on Saturdays. So Nicole adjusted her schedule, and she is working
I saw her.
every other Saturday, and her long list of violations she found, and talking to people and reminding them to cut the grass, to vehicles, to writing tickets, to doing rental inspections. And so she really enjoys that Saturday opportunity, because she actually talks to people and interacts with residents and gets problems corrected in a positive way. So that recommendation came from I believe the gentleman over on Crittenden Street, but it's working quite well. We have 3 citations currently working on the vacant lot here by Emerson. A citation, and they're going to court for that one. We have identified a number of rental units, and she inspected one today that failed, and so it's posted for non-habitation. We issued 136 business licenses, and she completed all of that. We now have on file an application with all of the business information, plus we have a copy of their use and occupancy permit for that location. You may have heard a lot of excitement about the electric fence over on Buchanan and Tanglewood. That fence isn't allowed by code, and so they're...
The electric fence?
Yes, a company came through town, and a couple of businesses erected electrified fences, and so, but they're not allowed by code by Prince George's County, and so they're in court with that. Nicole's working closely with them. She's developed a really great relationship with county inspector, and so a lot of times jointly they go in and deal with an issue. So it's been a very busy summer, continues to be. She started her annual inspection of Fountain Park Apartments this month and this week, and so that takes several weeks to get through that process, and continuing to work with grass as we have rain and more grass growing.
Where are we with the speed hump? I know you were going to.
Yes, I have talked to the company, so it's just a matter of getting it timed.
Okay.
And then we're going to paint it with the striping. It's going to be yellow.
Okay.
So that will even help more with slowing down as you approach it.
That's the speed hump on 51st. That's
correct.
A bump. It's not. Yeah, no, it's not. So we know that it's an issue, and I know it's like ha ha ha.
If you have an SUV, you hardly even.
Right.
So exactly what is that business on the end of Buchanan by forklift?
It's a giggle.
Yeah, there's 2 companies there. There's one that is a towing company,
So
and then
yes,
the lot was divided into 2, and one is a towing company and one is a company that transports cars overseas. Sends cars
They
overseas.
have the voltage on the fence.
Is that the place that one has the electric fence?
Yes. Not anymore. I mean, it's not electrified.
So the next item is our council dialogue. Ms. B, do you have anything? Or does anyone have anything?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is I was happy to see that the fence, I mean, you put up the guardrails along the rain garden. I saw that the other day, so that's good. So you can feel safer.
Yeah, good.
On the 51st, yeah. So.
Anyone else? Council.
I still say there's a issue with the light on Kenworth and Decatur. Even though you have the crosswalk, but still, if you're in the crosswalk, people still come around and try to beat the light or make the light or make a right on it. It's still dangerous. Still dangerous to cross, even when you have the crosswalk.
State Highway did come out and look at that because I walked with them, and I just we just need to follow up and see what they think.
They were going to do an actual study.
Survey. Yeah.
Well, I can give them a report. Sure.
I can too.
I get close to getting hit plenty of times, just crossing the street.
All right. Mr. Reveal or Ms. White? Ms. White? I have Ms. Hillary Chester, who I skipped at the beginning. I'm sorry. But we have been talking about, Ms. Chester brought to us some information a while back, and we were going to try to set up some forums with Ms. Turberville, but also, Ms. Chester, if you want to come up, she also had something else in her brain and on her mind and a need, so.
Is this working?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. A few of the other townspeople met last month in late August, and I will admit that Dennis Molina, one of our neighbors, did a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the work to prepare for this meeting. But it was an invitation to some town people and then other representatives from kind of like our town government to form a multicultural diversity advisory council so that citizens would be able to go out and in more informal ways engage with residents that we don't think are always feeling comfortable coming forward to meetings and thinking about how diverse our community is ethnically and with age. And so how can we reach out to people that we don't see coming to these kind of meetings or who might not know how to bring some concerns forward. So we wanted to bring a group of residents together to form kind of an advisory group so that we could help bridge those kind of relationships and help encourage people to come forward, or that we would just try to get out in informal settings and then come to these kind of meetings and help express some of those concerns, but really trying to encourage people to come themselves as well. So we have about 7 town people. Officer Young was there, Shantae was there, and Mayor Gant was there just as a kind of an observer role. We are trying to get at least 2 youth representatives just to help represent the full age diversity of our community. So we had one young woman, Michelle, who lives over in Ward 1, and she's still in high school, but we would look for at least one other young person. And then the plan is that we would do some kind of informal outreach. And so many of you know Victorine, she was there and she was thinking, oh, we could go to the bus stops at the beginning of the school year in the morning and just talk to some of the moms that are out there. So those kind of events, and then any of our big social events, we would go, introduce ourselves. We also want to use some space in our newsletter, so we'd be able to give updates, introduce ourselves, and then highlight that people could come and talk to us. And then we would also try to go to any of our social events in a more organized way. And then we are hoping to maybe develop social media, so maybe a Facebook page. We talked about exploring that, where people could post things, but we weren't sure whether people would want to do that. It's not very anonymous if it's Facebook. But we also wanted to be able to promote messages on the TV channel that we have. So those are some of our ideas. We'll probably meet monthly, at least in the very beginning, while we kind of get ourselves organized. And then we have our motto is diversity, inclusivity, and prosperity. So,
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, I suppose?
Stay there in case they have any questions. We all know Ms. Hillary's background and her bilingual and her desire just to have the community become one, because we found that there's a lot of separateness, and it's not that people don't want to participate, it's just that fear or that hesitation. And if we have a group of individuals of different backgrounds, we could probably reach so many more and make people feel more inclusive. And so I thank you for doing that or initiating that. Any questions?
I mean, Hillary, just please let us know how we can help. I mean, I think this is great because I think a lot of our community that we can't really reach is because we are official, and that might be very off-putting to them, particularly right now. But if there's other ways that we can assist without it being sort of the town of Edmonston or the police department of Edmonston, I think that all of us would be
Sure.
And the input from the police department was great, fantastic. It was fantastic.
Just as a note, we are overly represented by the east side of the river. So we have maybe too much Ward 1, but only this half of Ward 1. So we would like to have more, we probably, have a few more spots that we'd like to fill. And so we're going to try and work on getting people who might be interested on the other side of on the west side of the river in that part of Ward 1, and then we don't really have anybody from Ward 2. So, just throwing it out there.
I think you do. Yeah.
Do we have someone from Ward 2?
Raphael, no.
And the only way you're getting the word out is through the newsletter and how you are.
So that we're working on that. So we're thinking about, again, like, going to the bus stops. There's this bridging event that's happening on, I believe, the 16th in the evening after school. No, on Sunday. I think it's the 16th coming up. So we'll go to that. And then other events, maybe the Port Towns Day. But yeah, just trying to sort of think about ways to be informally connecting with people. But if you have ideas, we would appreciate it, because that is an area that we're like, how can we get ourselves out there?
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anything? Oh, you know what? Before I forget, very, very important. We have a new environmental program manager, Mr. Andrew Jones, who joined us, and he'll be here for a year at no cost to the town. We love our grant opportunities. And Mr. Andrew, if you want to just introduce yourself.
Sure.
And give them your background.
Sure.
I'm just so proud of you, the work you've already done. You've been here 2 weeks, haven't you?
Yeah.
2 weeks, yeah.
So, as you said, my name is Andrew Jones. I just graduated in December from Salisbury University, and the university is around Eastern Shore with degrees in biology and bioscience. Since then, I've worked for the Maryland House of Delegates. I worked in their Environment and Transportation Committee. This summer, I was a summer camp counselor for a nature camp. So I created and gave all the lessons for all the camps I did. And now I'm a Conservation Corps member with the Chesapeake Bay Trust. So like she said, no cost to the town. And I'll be here for a year, and I'll be working on the Complete Streets policy, kind of revamping the recycling program here in town. And I'm looking on maybe doing a big project on food waste, like helping reduce food waste in residential setting here, like perhaps getting bins for residents. We're still looking into that, but we're either residents could have a bin at their house, or like that they can create their own compost there, or they could have some sort of storage facility, and then we would take that to the county. Other things I'm working on are the bike share program. We're looking at where to site the bike share stations. I proposed that we moved it from, I believe it was originally by community
Eco City Farms.
Eco City Farms, to Veterans Park, because that's a more accessible location, not only near the trail, but also closer to major access points like the roads. And one thing I've already done is I worked on, I completely updated the Evanston Green Agenda. It was last updated in 2000, so this reflects our current agenda and projects we have.
So when he mentioned about the bike rack or the bike station, yeah, it was going to be at Eco City Farm, but not that we're taking it from Eco City Farm. It was just that it kind of dead end right there where the park is. The trail just stops right there. So it's less likely that a biker is going to ride on that trail. So it was best to suggest moving it.
That's Capital Bike Share?
Yeah, and it wasn't a great distance for it to be moved. It was just a more accessible location, just making sense.
More common sense.
That's what the air station's at Eagle Farm. For you.
But it is going to be the rack itself.
Yes.
People out there.
Yeah.
Because the other program, I can't use that kind of language here. But oh, come on.
The only thing I was looking at is just changing the location of where they expose.
Prince George's County is doing capital bike shares all across the county. They're doing it in a 6-phase process. Phase 1 was implemented this summer and into the fall. We're in phase 3A, so as they get the funding, they wrote and received $1.6 million in grant funds from transportation to put in this first phase. So as they buy the racks and buy the bikes, and so we'll just keep expanding. But there's 2 on Route 1 that's part of the first phase.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew.
That's
Glad to have you here.
20 miles an hour.
I know.
If there is nothing else,
I make a motion to go into a closed session to discuss personnel matters.
Can we have a short recess between so that she can get the document signed?
so you can make a motion to go into closed session, to adjourn the regular meeting and to go into closed session. Do you think that there's a vote that we need to come back out? Yeah, that's what I'm just telling you to say, that we're, make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and go into closed session and not come back out to the regular meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting to go into a closed session and not come back out to the regular meeting. To discuss personnel matters.
To discuss personnel matters, right. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, the regular meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and keeping us company. Once again, greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The mayor.